I think it's very important because if you can get stuck in these loops of believing that you are something or this way or that it's too hard for things, and like a lot of fixed mindset is just rejection of change or thinking that things are too difficult, and you're going to have a lot of failures probably in your recovery journey. Like most people don't just sort of quit instantly and go, oh, this was a bad idea, I'll just stop. Like you're seeing yourself fail repeatedly and learning that it's not forever and that you'll get better is like part of growth mindset and having faith in that, right? And then just realizing like the neuroscience of just how your brain makes new pathways, and like it may be on like this default pathway for now that's the one that you built up out of just like neurogenesis, because if you had this repeated action that got rewarded, and just being able to know that rewards will come slowly over time from doing something different. And when you believe that, you're like, oh, okay, my brain will change. Like it can change itself. Like that's empowering, and knowing that you're not stuck forever is cool.
You're listening to Unhooked. Today, I'm joined by Sam Webster Harris, a serial entrepreneur and the host of the Growth Mindset Psychology podcast. He is also the host of the new history show, How to Change the World. Sam is well known for translating psychology and big ideas into practical tools with empathy and clarity, which makes him a perfect fit for conversations about recovery, compulsive behavior, and building a life of integrity. In this wide-ranging episode, expect to learn what a growth mindset really is and the most common myths that hold people back, how shame evolved and how to work with it skillfully, why modern tech and social media amplify compulsive behaviors and how to reclaim your attention, a simple way to diagnose your own problems so you can choose the right strategy for change, and much more. Now, if you're struggling with compulsive porn use and you want a structured support and community to help you break free, check out my group program at unhookedacademy.com. I also currently have a few spots open for my one-on-one coaching work, so you can visit jeremylipkowitz.com/intro to learn more. And now, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Sam Webster Harris. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Unhooked podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lipkowitz. Today, joined by another podcaster, Sam Webster Harris. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Been enjoying your show so far, so hopefully I don't hate it after this or ruin it for you.
Yeah, it's been nice because we both have podcasts. We've both been kind of checking each other's podcasts out, and I've been doing a deep dive into your podcast and really loving, kind of the way you present a lot of the ideas. So the Growth Mindset podcast, just a lot of really cool ways of explaining some of these topics that can be a little more esoteric or erudite or just kind of philosophical, but you really bring them down to earth in ways that I appreciate. For the listeners who are out there, who haven't listened to your podcast before, who maybe don't know about you, can you give us a little sense of what your Growth Mindset podcast is all about?
Thanks for the introduction. I think you did a very good job already, to be honest. I think I'm quite fascinated in going beyond just the basic kind of coaching you can do better thing. And I feel like I always listen to a lot of podcasts where they'd come up with like a problem that you should solve and just be like, just work harder, do more. And I really wanted to go into the psychology behind it and kind of empathize with why people were having that problem and just sort of see why it's probably natural that they are that way. And then be like, okay, how can you tweak it to get to where you want to go to from a place of feeling like it's normal where you are, as opposed to like, oh, you're broken, just work a bit harder because of you're silly. And that was kind of annoying me. And
it sounds like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I feel like you do a very good job yourself of the same thing. And I think that's part of what I liked about your show as well. And yeah, otherwise quite a few similarities between us. I was finding with like exercise, meditation, just taking slightly different career paths and making content about it.
Yeah. And did I see you're into high rocks as well?
So no, but I appreciated that you were. So I've done like some ultra marathons and just different hard things. And I just appreciated your episode about high rocks and the point of taking on a challenge. So I just think it really helps, and any way to build exercise into your life or just take on things that are a bit more difficult or outside your comfort zone is very growth mindset, very much helps you do other difficult things, just raises your like threshold and capacity for mental strength and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're definitely going to get into a bunch of other topics, talking about things like shame, addiction, porn, the whole gamut. But because your podcast is called the Growth Mindset Podcast, and because growth mindset is such an important topic that I haven't really addressed head on in my own podcast, I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering if you can just tell us in your own words, like, what is a growth mindset?
Yeah, I I feel like I'm really asking for that, and that I I spent so much time. Like, I usually ask this of everyone that comes on my show, and I get a completely different answer, which I love. And so my own definition has got a bit confused to the point where I deflect the question by just rambling about the topic like I am now. But at the core, I guess it's the concept of not just taking on things that are obviously hard and unpacking what might be more difficult under the surface. Of like, it's very easy to just do a bit more extra practice on something you know what you want to do, but realizing where you are weak in other places and just being a bit more holistic about your whole psychology and like what you want to achieve, and being open-minded to what other people can tell you, and just really liking the feedback process and the failure that you go through, and being like, oh, if something is hard, like honing in on the hard things, which I guess where I was like, high rocks, that's cool, because if you develop a love of difficulty, then you can basically get through anything. And
Mm,
I think that's where kind of growth mindset lies, which hopefully
yeah.
was an okay definition for someone that talked about it all the time and has problems.
No,
I
I
should
know
really
what you
be
mean.
practicing that definition if I had a growth mindset, apparently, which I haven't done.
Yeah. You definitely should nail down a definition for yourself just so
Hmm.
when people like me ask you what it is,
Yeah.
you have something to go to. Um, but this idea of like falling in love with the difficulty, it's something I was just talking about with some of the guys in my community, and it's actually something I was listening to on one of your podcasts, which is this idea like to fall in love with the journey rather than the destination.
Mm,
Falling in love with
sure.
the climb, the ascent, the hard work. Like if you can fall in love with the hard work and fall in love with doing difficult things, that will result in so much growth and so much improvement and success and fulfillment. Even if you don't achieve the success, like just the feeling of fulfillment from doing difficult things is really rewarding.
Yeah, for sure. As in, I feel like there's a bit of an urge whenever things are difficult to seek something easier. And I think it's really obvious if you think about the concept of surfing. Like, you go out surfing for a while, and then like you finally get onto a wave, and that's like the really difficult bit. And if you just give up straight away and jump off the surfboard, what was the point of ever going surfing? Like, the point is, like, that is the moment where you have to try hard and stay on it. And whenever you're in your work or anything, whenever it's difficult, that's probably the bit where you're doing the most important thing. And that's like the moment where like you get your shot to make something good. And so like this is the bit that you're actually been waiting for your whole life. Instead, like, if you just get out your phone and go on Facebook or do something easy, like that, you're never going to get anywhere, right? And recognizing that, I think, is super important. And then just the concept of the journey, like, you don't go hiking just to reach the end. You go hiking to do the hike, right? And yeah, if you look at Instagram and see people having their travel photos, it looks great, but like, there's lots of boring parts in the airport around it. But if you can make the airport fun as you're hanging out with people, or just all the rest of the journey is like, that's your life that you're living. So you kind of want to be in it, as opposed to constantly escaping it with phone notifications or porn or whatever it might be for you.
Yeah. Was there a moment in your life where this topic really kind of became important, something that you overcame or a
Oh,
challenge in your
it's
life where, yeah. I mean, I
just in
imagine there must
general,
be
like, in
because,
challenge.
yeah, because you have a history of like
Mm,
running businesses. You sold a
yeah.
company. It sounds like there must be something that made you feel like, hey, understanding, human growth, optimization, growth mindset, this is actually really important. So what was it that made you feel like this is more important than running and selling businesses?
Um, I think so. There are two parts to this answer. Firstly, a very accidental process of I was studying biology at university, and my best friend had a little sister who was doing her biology A levels, and she was just failing everything. She was at a school that was just terrible, and like the teacher thought everyone, like if anyone got a D, they were like pretty happy, which wasn't very good. So I was meant to be tutoring her, like teaching her biology, but essentially we didn't have that much time, and I basically just taught her that she was smart and gave her more of a growth mindset and just taught her. And so she ended up getting A's in everything, the only kid in the school, and got like a funded scholarship to go do like the degree she wanted. And I was like the happiest, like the way I got A's at school, and I wasn't that bothered compared to when she did. And I was like, whoa, I can change people's lives. And that was one very big focus for me of just like how powerful mindset is to help people. So that was one area. Then for myself on doing things, I guess I have a slight ADHD. I get very bored. So I don't know if this was necessarily a trait that I learned as much as kind of needed, in that I kind of have to constantly be learning. And part of learning is doing things you don't know about. And I get pretty bored if I'm doing something I'm already good at. And I wasn't very good at talking when I was young. And so I had lots of ideas all the time that I couldn't explain to people. So the podcast has been very much a journey for myself of like working out how to get ideas into the world. And like the new show, like I'm doing How to Change the World, that one has like way more research. And like, I don't think I could have even done it a year ago. My brain hurts a lot of the time lately doing my new show. And like, I really like that. And I find that hard to get in a normal job where you have to go through regularity and you just have to do the thing that you're good at and people depend on you. I find I have to go to places where I push myself to be confused all the time, which is just like partly in my nature, I think, but also some things that I kind of learned work out better. So a bit of an airy answer for you there, but I don't know how to teach the
it
complete
makes
desire
sense.
for that.
Yeah, I'm curious to know though. So you were working with this girl who wasn't doing well in her classes, and then you didn't have a lot of time. You basically, kind of gave her this growth mindset of just saying, "Hey, you're smart. You can figure this out. You can get better." How did you know to do that? I mean, had you already been introduced to growth mindset?
No, I hadn't. I didn't formally teach a growth mindset. I just pushed back on her when she was like, I can't get more than a D, or just like her teacher said that everyone was sort of like, she just had given up on
She
some
didn't
things. I
believe
was
in
just like,
herself.
okay, anyone can actually get an A. Because I did have a different moment earlier in that. So I was pretty smart at school. And I remember I was sitting next to a different girl who wasn't as good at maths as me. So I was always teaching her maths and stuff. And then I remember we got to like our GCSEs and she beat me. And I was like, so I didn't do any work to like revise for exams. I just thought exams were a test of intelligence. And so I was so shocked that someone that was worse at maths could beat me. And I was like, but I'm better. Like, what's the point of this exam? It didn't test my intelligence. And I really like, oh wait, you just have to work. Like, you just have to like revise these things and remember stuff. And so by the time I got to my own A levels, I had started to have issues in that I still had the plan of just not really working very hard and just turning up. And I kind of failed everything before like the final thing. So I just went like crazy with my revision for a month. And I was like, okay, if I can go from failing to all A's in a month, and like I told that to her, I was like, so can you? And like, this is what I did. I just did a ton of past papers. I just worked out what they were asking and what they wanted to hear. And I just told them it. And like, there you go, you have an A. And you can do that too, because you're just as smart as me, because you're clearly able to have conversations about the stuff you don't understand. And we get there. So like, you can more than get an A, you're fine. And this is all you need to do. And she was like, oh, okay. And I just taught her that she wasn't stupid and that there's nothing stopping her from doing what she wanted as far as an exam is concerned.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of growth mindset comes down to a fundamental belief in yourself and a belief that you can improve with hard work and diligence.
Exactly. Which that's all doing a bunch of revision is, right?
Yeah, but I guess you can do revision, but if you don't have that belief in yourself.
Yeah. If you have the belief in yourself, or if you just constantly memorize versus trying to understand, like go into the hard things that you're not good at versus just rewriting stuff again and again. I do have an issue with the education system around teaching us for exams to just regurgitate information versus learn why things happen and question stuff for yourself. Yeah, that's definitely a big frustration in my life,
Yeah. How do
for
you see
people.
growth mindset connecting to the topic of recovery or like breaking bad habits or breaking free from addiction?
Uh, yeah, I think it's very important because if you can get stuck in these loops of believing that you are something or this way or that it's too hard for things, and like a lot of fixed mindset is just rejection of change or thinking that things are too difficult, and you're going to have a lot of failures probably in your recovery journey. Like most people don't just sort of quit instantly and go, oh, this was a bad idea, I'll just stop. Like you're seeing yourself fail repeatedly and learning that it's not forever and that you'll get better is like part of growth mindset and having faith in that, right? Um, so that's a big element. And then just realizing like the neuroscience of just how your brain makes new pathways, and like it may be on like this default pathway for now that's the one that you built up out of just like neurogenesis, because if you had this repeated action that got rewarded, and just being able to know that rewards will come slowly over time from doing something different, and when you believe that, you're like, oh, okay, my brain will change, like it can change itself. Like that's empowering, and knowing that you're not stuck forever is cool.
Yeah, I think the topic of neuroplasticity was one of the biggest game changers for me in my recovery from porn
Mm.
addiction. When I first learned about how the brain is plastic and it's constantly forming new connections, and I realized that wherever I was in the past and whoever I had been in the past wasn't kind of a death sentence, that
Yeah,
I could
definitely.
change who I was and change my habits and behaviors just by training the mind in those other directions. So for me, neuroplasticity is a huge component of growth mindset.
Yeah, and like especially with that kind of overcoming urges and things. Like, how did you deal with that part for yourself? Um, I'm kind of interested because I haven't. We can talk about my own journey with porn addiction at some point, but yeah, didn't have like the crazy level of porn addiction, but I found it much easier to stop by having a girlfriend. But
Mm.
it's not always easy for other people. Like, so I'm not sure like how people deal with those urges when they have like a much bigger problem and don't have an easy solution,
Yeah, I mean,
which
there's so
just presenting problems. Sorry.
no, I mean, it's great. That's really the topic. That's the main topic of this podcast is like, how do you overcome these urges for behaviors that ultimately are self-sabotaging and ultimately they're not leading you where you want to go, and yet there's these parts of you that just want to do it, and it's how do you
Mm,
you know how do you work with those skillfully, those urges, and not just suppress it or repress it, which leads to more acting out. um, and it's a challenge. I mean, there's a lot of tools that go into it: mindfulness, building up skills of equanimity, and impulse control is important, but then also identity and values and
mm,
motivation. I was just listening to one of your podcasts on motivation and like these different the researchers you were talking about had these different kinds of motivation. Like they used to think it was just intrinsic or extrinsic,
mm.
but then in the
Yeah, yeah.
podcast you were talking about there's these, I forget the two, there was like
Yeah, because like,
internal.
you could tell me about this one.
Yeah, it was
But yeah, as in,
internal, and then there was the value driven
yeah,
intrinsic.
as in like, who do you think you are? Why are you doing it? So like the people doing like the super long hike across America, if they're just doing it to sort of show off, it wasn't so good, versus like if you're just doing something for charity, or if you've like publicly put it out there, you kind of just have this sense of shame if you don't do it, and reward and like desire to do it for a purpose, um, which is really handy because it just has something that's less inside your internal motivation, and like your internal motivation isn't that good because
Mhm.
it always just is very flaky, and like
Yeah.
that's fine. You should just expect that and work with that, and doing something for other reasons besides just because you think you want to, is really important.
Yeah. But what I found really interesting is the value driven, the kind of value driven
Mm.
intrinsic motivation. What
Yeah, like
you
who you
said is
think
like
you are.
the researchers showed that people who did the thing for that motivation lived like happier, more fulfilled lives.
Mm.
That both people did the thing, like both people did the trek across the country, but the people who did it from that value based motivation were living happier lives. And I think that's a big component of recovery too. It's like if you're if your motivation to quit porn is just shaming yourself,
Mm,
that will only take you
definitely.
so far. But if your
Yeah.
motivation to quit porn is because you have certain values around respect or, whatever it is, that can take you much further.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. As in the same, like I was vegetarian for a while. Like I'm not anymore, but I'm increasingly just looking at animals and being like, oh my God, these are really cute. I don't want to, I don't want to eat it. And like, I feel like that's something in my head. I feel there's a bit of a similar cognitive dissonance around porn of like, it's kind of weird to be like objectifying women in this way and just having this sort of around you and just expecting like to be able to consume it is kind of odd. Like as soon as you've finished masturbating, it's pretty weird to have it on your computer and you're like, ugh. But
Yeah.
until that moment, and yeah, I think
It's
that's
the
like
post nut
definitely,
clarity is real.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lot of guys know what that is. It's like as soon as you orgasm, you kind of wake up to where you are. You have this sudden awakening of, what am I looking at? And how is
yeah,
this really how I'm living my life? And it can be quite distressing.
definitely.
Yeah.
Which,
What was your
yeah, I guess is
experience with
value.
what was your experience with porn and kind of recognizing that it wasn't maybe the healthiest thing?
Um, yeah, I think I found it kind of a surprising thing because I've generally defined myself as someone that's not very into like anti-addictive personality, if you know what I mean. As in, I've never liked things having control of me. So I tried a few drugs that were addictive and was just instantly like, oh my God, I think I want to try more and just stopped. Whereas I'll happily take shrooms every now and then because of it's nice and expanding and doesn't make me think about it. And I got addicted to coffee when I was like 19 because worked in an office where like there was no water, there was only a coffee machine, and I remember just being like, "Wow, this sucks," and just didn't drink coffee for 10 years. Um, so when it came to like porn, like I remember all my friends, like some of them showing off about like masturbating 3 times a day or something, and I remember actually feeling shame that I couldn't, and being like, "Wow, I couldn't even masturbate more than once a day if I tried." And I couldn't masturbate every day for a week. I'd have to like have a break. And so I just kind of didn't even think that I could vaguely be porn addicted. And yeah, I went through most of my life sort of masturbating like a few times a week and feeling perfectly happy, like it was under control. And then it just slowly got more as like I think my ADHD got worse and just social media and other stuff. Just as you got used to having like email on your phone and just checking things all the time, I feel like porn also got worse for me. Like I still wouldn't do it more than once a day, or like still probably couldn't do it every day a week, but it was just more present in my life. And like the urges to like that I couldn't stop became hard, if you know what I mean. As in like you just think, oh, maybe I could have masturbate at that point. Like as soon as the thought was in your head, like it was basically, well, I definitely am. I couldn't just suddenly stop it kind of thing. And but I didn't necessarily realize it too much for a while because of in my head, a porn addiction was someone that's like masturbating 5 times a day and can't like get through their normal life, or someone that has some kind
Mhm.
of like lost all their money spending it on like OnlyFans or something. And it was just like someone that's like ruining their life with a porn addiction. And it's just sort of like mildly present and stopping me from needing to find a girlfriend, which is actually really bad for your life. But on any given day, it's not really like a problem that you would necessarily complain about. And so, yeah, at some point I kind of realized, hey, this probably isn't good or right. And it just like slowly got into my life, you know?
Yeah, it's
And
the slow creep of some of these. It's like this concept that's really fascinating, that sometimes the hardest problems to overcome are the ones that just kind of impact your life, but they
yeah,
don't destroy your life, because the things that destroy your life, they're so impactful that they're almost easier to overcome because there's
yeah,
more
definitely.
incentive to address it. But the ones
Mm,
that are just slowly eating away at you bit by bit, drop by drop over years, they can be really challenging, first of all, to even identify, let alone to have the motivation to address it and put in the effort to break free.
yeah, yeah, 100%. There's the same thing in the inverse way of like mediocre success of something that you get a bit of reward for. Like you have a podcast that you have like a few listeners that they like, but it's not actually growing. And after like 500 episodes, it sort of takes up your time. But it's like your permanent, all of your extra capacity is just going into that thing that like is sort of rewarding, but is never going to be big. And that's harder to quit than like a startup that fails or is like growing exponentially. And I think, yeah, it's an important concept. Just like this
Yeah.
mediocre crap or mediocre success level is, it's just really hard to notice.
And I
Um,
think also the slow buildup over time. I mean, as you
mm,
said, it's like in the same way. I don't know if you've ever
yeah, it's like
gained a lot
compounding.
of weight, but you know,
Yeah,
you never really notice it until you see a photo. Like if you have gained
yeah.
a lot of weight, then you
I
see a
haven't had
photo
that
and
issue, but I've certainly had my friends that like I just didn't see them for 2 years over COVID, and then you're like, oh, you're fat. What happened? But like
yeah,
they didn't even know, and like their girlfriend didn't even know, and then like just hadn't seen them for 2 years, and it was like, yeah, I think we need to do something about this. And yeah, it's really, yeah, it's strange.
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't had that with weight gain. I've always been
yeah.
into exercise.
But I
I
think
had it like a
a lot,
little bit at college when I was, yeah, I used to exercise every day, and I went to college and was working instead of exercising, and I kind of noticed it after like 6 months, and that was about the closest I got. But
yeah,
yes, definitely relate to the idea of it, and it definitely happens. Like just little things. It's just like algorithms also get you, and just like something you might hear. Like I remember hearing somewhere on a podcast that like, you know, masturbating is healthy, you don't have any shame, and like it's probably good to sort of ejaculate every few days, and then maybe like, oh yeah, probably maybe I should like it actually maybe watch porn more, that thing. And then yeah, Instagram, it's so easy to have your feed just filled with stuff if you just like hang on a picture too long. But it's odd. Or
yeah,
like recently I went to Patreon because I was trying to, like, my cousin has a cool YouTube channel and was trying to support him. And like I was just surprised that there was like naked women on Patreon. So I clicked just to see what the fuck they were doing on Patreon. And then like I went back to the homepage, and then my homepage was just full of women basically using Patreon as an OnlyFans. I was like, shit, this has ruined Patreon for me. And then I was going into the settings to see if I could like refresh everything. And like it has something, an adult filter. So I just turned that on. But like, why is Patreon sending me like sex? Like I'm just trying to
yeah. I
support
mean, this,
creators that aren't doing
yeah.
these things.
I think you're highlighting something which is very real for a lot of the listeners, which is the ways that porn has, very subtly kind of crept into. There's so many gray areas. It's on social
Mm,
media. I mean, the line between Pornhub and OnlyFans and Instagram, it's so thin. It's
yeah.
it's basically everywhere, and it's socially acceptable. It's normalized, and also because porn is such a huge industry, as you mentioned, kind of like, oh, sometimes just a little fact will get into your brain and that might cause you to act out or, watch porn even more, like, oh, masturbation is healthy for you. One of the other facts that the porn industry has deliberately kind of introduced is, oh, this is female empowerment.
Mm,
This is women liberating themselves and just sexually expressing themselves. That was a narrative from the porn industry to make you feel more comfortable with porn, even though it's almost the opposite of what is actually true. It's more
yeah.
objectification, it's taking advantage of women. But those things can get into people's minds like a virus and make them think, oh, there's nothing wrong with porn. This is female empowerment.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, maybe it is all right for some women, but yeah, it definitely seems like most of them don't enjoy these things. Like it is interesting that women can make money doing things. In some ways, I'm like, yeah, I wonder what I would do if you could just sort of make money taking pictures of
I,
yourself and
I
stuff.
see you, I see
I'm
your
listening.
mind going there like, if I
This,
could be an OnlyFans superstar and make millions of dollars just posting feet. I mean, the thing is, you're totally right. Like,
mm,
if you could just post photos of your feet and make millions of dollars, why wouldn't you?
yeah,
And that's the story that gets told. And so, and the nuance here is that it is okay for some people. Some people do it and they're very happy with being an OnlyFans star or being a porn star, and it works for them. The problem is we highlight those success stories and
oh
we,
yeah, most people don't have that,
yeah,
and yeah, it's like kind of candy for your brain and just doesn't help you at all, and it makes you expect different things
yeah,
that, yeah, that isn't real at all, and just makes it worse to actually enjoy the real version. Like I think you've spoken about, like people have erectile dysfunction in real life because of they're just used to something so fake, and that's definitely a problem.
yeah. Going back to your story, like it sounds like there was a time where you started to recognize, hey, this is not so healthy. It's maybe preventing me from actually going out and meeting someone in real life. Was it hard for you to give it up, or what, was there kind of just a moment where things changed?
Yeah, I dialed back a bit, but I still would say I struggled, and then um, but making a bit more of a concerted effort to go out and talk to women more often. And like I did listen to a few things and definitely tried to masturbate less, which had some semi-success. But like the idea of, I remember like listening to Mark Manson, he said like just quit all porn and basically masturbate once a week in the shower or something. And just being like, how? Like it couldn't even enter my brain that you could do. Like I hadn't masturbated without porn, basically. Like I think I remember once when I was 18, I drove across America and I didn't like have an internet for 30 days back when like this was like 2008 or something. And like I masturbated like then like once. Uh and otherwise like I just couldn't masturbate without porn and didn't even know how to. But like I have since been able to again because I just didn't use porn for like months on end since having a girlfriend. But like I didn't manage to get there before having a girlfriend. But I definitely had some improvements, but I didn't. Uh, it wasn't. If like we said earlier, it wasn't such a problem for me that I was like, oh my god, I really have to deal with this. And like I think I probably, if I'd spent more time listening to content, I would think I would have acknowledged it a bit more and felt some more motivation and like need to do it. Like listen to your podcast. It's really nice, as in it's not always just about porn kind of thing, but it's just, I just feel like there's a presence in my life to be like, oh, by the way, you can do better. Like you can just sort of make
Mm.
that little improvement that you can just, um, yeah, it's really nice having that support around you to just think you can listen to it. Like I get something similar on my show when I talk to people that they're just trying to improve something in their life and they don't necessarily listen to any episode for a specific purpose as much as just the comfort of hearing someone that's reminding them that they can make an improvement on something and like it's okay, they've got it. And
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, as you say, it's not just porn or one thing. It's like it can be anything. Just, hey,
mm,
you can improve your life and you've got this. And it's that fundamental belief in yourself that things can get better and you can
yeah,
get
yeah,
better.
100%.
Yeah. Let's talk about shame because shame is something that comes up a lot in recovery. And I also know that you have a new podcast about the history of everything.
Yes,
And
I do.
one of the episodes you did was on shame. So tell me a little bit about what you learned about shame.
Yeah. So the episode was actually on the cognitive revolution and the um, invention of language, basically. But in that process, we also invented shame. So humans are the only animals that actually feel a sense of shame. Like you might think a dog has shame, but it just knows that it's done something wrong and that it might going to get punished. It doesn't want to get like hit. It doesn't actually necessarily feel bad. Whereas we feel terrible when we have shame, and like it's just essentially from once we had language and we were able to talk about things beyond like monkeys can just make a call that sound it's like the noise a noise will represent the fact that there's a lion coming or an eagle so they can run away but they can't talk about where it's coming from or what they think about it or what you should be eating for breakfast or if you're doing well or not like whereas we started being able to just talk about things and talk about people that weren't around so we could be like Jeremy, he's a bit of a weirdo, he's always masturbating and we could we can gossip about you and say that we don't like you for whatever reason, or that you meditate too much and you should just get back in the real world or something. We can say stuff behind your back and you'll feel that and know that you're maybe less useful in the tribe or whatever, or that your like position is just being at threat. And so shame is like, it's got this double sense of when you have that sense of shame and you sort of you betray yourself, like you go red, like no other animal in the world also blushes. But when we blush, we show people that we feel bad about what we're doing and we wish we hadn't done it, which helps people forgive you. And internally, you're also feeling terrible, which is basically your body telling you you should do something else. Because if you feel that shame, it's like the guide to be like, okay, actually, maybe I shouldn't hit someone or I shouldn't like steal these steaks. I should like be better for everyone and I should be a nice person. And so we basically evolved gossip and shame to kind of keep ourselves as like a social glue. So you think of gossip as like at school, people gossiping about things or at the workplace. You think of it as bad, but actually gossip was basically what made society work and made us like actually social beings that are good to each other.
Mhm.
And we kind of
So you're
went
saying
even further.
gossip is a good thing.
Yeah, gossip essentially is what made society work. And if we didn't have gossip, we just wouldn't give a shit. We just do what we want. And like, um, it would be kind of useless as a
Fascinating.
society, which you wouldn't expect. And then we also kind of slightly domesticated ourselves by execution. So people that didn't have that social gene and didn't have a sense of shame and would just do what they wanted, we basically would gang up on them. And through gossip, because we were able to talk behind their backs, if someone was always like raping people in the tribe or taking food, like one day when they're out hunting, people would just be like, okay, we'll just kill him. And that's literally how we became more social and like kind to each other, because we want to show that we're nice and probably shouldn't be executed, which is sort of strange. But like the goodness of our nature came from essentially being able to kill people, which is a bit of a duality, but kind of important. But it's also why we have some problems that we're still comfortable killing people if we get slightly too much into ideology and whatnot. But it's fascinating because I had no idea about this until I started learning about the evolution of language and why we do what we do.
Totally fascinating. Like I'd never thought about it from that lens before, that basically our ability to talk about people is
Mm.
what is kind of what gave rise to the ability to shame and feel shame. Um, and it's interesting because shame, I'm actually a big proponent of healthy shame
Yeah,
or
yeah, exactly. Like
pro-social
it's
shame.
not
You know, it's a
entirely a
guardian.
bad thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
just
In Buddhist
how you do it.
philosophy, it's like it's known as one of the two great guardians of the world. Like,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah, I
really
think
fascinating that it can be
definitely.
protective.
I think this is an issue that we have today, that we can go too far with like shame is just bad.
Mm,
And so if you think about like my parents' generation, they were taught that like, okay, if you work hard, you can get what you want in life, and you maybe aren't going to be something amazing. Whereas like our generation was taught like, hey, you can do what you want, but you probably have to work hard, and we're still comfortable with working. Whereas like younger people now are just say kind of taught that like, not only can you be what you want, you can feel what you want and you don't have to work for it. And like the idea of someone telling you that like you should feel bad for not exercising or anything is rude or bad. And like, well, you can't feel feelings without working for them. You have to, there is a sense of like responsibility to do the thing that will get you what you want. But if we just go around telling people that there's nothing bad about being completely unhealthy, like it's not quite correct. As in, you can have empathy for the fact that they got to the place that they're in, and like people have addictions, and you can understand why they're in them. And you shouldn't just make people feel complete shame for being like just a monster of society because they just don't do things correctly. But the idea that there should be no shame involved for messing up and not being responsible for yourself is actually kind of toxic, because then there's no reason to ever work hard to have a growth mindset and actually deal with your issues head on.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said it that like shame is the thing that gives us the motivation to deal with our issues. Otherwise, we're just giving ourselves a free pass and saying, ah, it doesn't matter if I do anything unskillful or harmful.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't need to be ashamed.
yeah. This is a really weird issue that we're kind of creating, where we kind
Mm,
of saying that you can just be entitled to your feelings. Like it doesn't really make sense.
yeah. Was there anything that you learned like on doing the research for this episode on shame that was very practical for you that you started to implement in your life?
I guess it's like not sticking out straight away, which is fine to not have a good answer. Like I think more just my holistic awareness of like literally what I just said, even of like just trying to get to the root of what's confusing people about wokeism, or what people are trying to say when they're being a bit right wing or something and getting annoyed about stuff. I just felt like I understood more and like had more empathy for why people get annoyed about stuff and are unable to explain their feelings. And it definitely was a very big lesson on like the duality of things, as in like there's no such thing as like bad in nature or right and
Mm,
wrong. And like actually in most of human society, most things that we talk about as bad or label as bad usually have a reason for them. And there's usually a good side to it as well. Because I think in Buddhism we learn about this a lot, but like I do often talk about on my podcast, like fear and desire are also the same thing. As in whatever you want is also what you fear, the opposite of it. And I think shame and like goals and glorify, like whatever is sort of good and what we aspire to as a society is also powered by shame. Like it is the same thing, as in, like if people want to be rich, like there is shame around being poor and being useless. If people want to be clever, there is shame around being like not intelligent and making bad decisions and stuff. And like shame is just like a fundamental part of society that we have to accept is there, rather than just try to sort of get rid of. And just realizing that and just how people talk, I think it was just just empowering, just to sort of see it everywhere and understand what's actually going on. And just think it helps you explain your thoughts or like what people are doing better, because I think we're very reactive these days, and we just sort of say something about our feelings, but we don't necessarily know where they're coming from. And it just helps you build a more long-term mindset of why things happen. So yeah, that has been helpful for me as a thinker, philosopher, whatnot.
Seems like it gave you more empathy for understanding people and their motivations, and
Sure.
because it is so integral to every motivation, as you say, desire and fear and shame and aspirations.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if it's nice. Like I saw some comments on your podcast from people who are women saying like, this has been really helpful for me to understand what other people are thinking. And I think understanding that like shame is just like a normal part of what's going on, and actually just talking about it, getting things out there can be really relieving. Like I remember at university, like I did like a tiny amount of shoplifting and then felt huge amounts of shame about it. And then my friend, who I also had no idea did some, and then he spoke about it. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I'm not that weird or like that much bad person kind of thing. And just being like, like it's okay to just sort of talk about these things. So like you often judge yourself more than other people than you would judge anyone else. And you kind of think like, oh, it'd be terrible for me to admit to, but then when someone else does it, you don't even care at all. Like similar, like I did the rainbow festivals where a lot of people are kind of naked and they don't have any internet for like 30 days. And people run around naked and you just don't give a shit that they're naked. And it takes a while, but slowly you're like, oh, I guess I don't need so many clothes on. At some point you walk around naked and you're like, no one cares. And I feel fine. And it's just this ability to be open and not too worried about yourself, I think is really empowering.
Totally.
And being able to bring that to other people is just really nice and a gift.
Yeah.
I think.
I was just talking about this with a client the other day about nude beaches and how personally I find them to be so liberating when you go to a place that kind of culturally, it's very accepting of nude beaches. Like I was in Spain, went to a nude beach, and it's just normal there. And nobody's kind of like, oh, we're doing something, strange. It's just people were just nude on a beach under the sun, in the ocean. And it was so liberating to just feel comfortable and at ease just being naked. And I think there is something, letting go of that false belief of there's something wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I'm different in some way. Yeah. It's so funny. Like in the book of, in the Bible, and Adam and Eve, like the first thing they did when they bit the apple was they covered up their genitals. So that like shame about our body, kind of goes back thousands of years. Like it's something very primal, but it can also be liberating when we let go of that.
Yeah, 100%. There was definitely like a link I've kind of felt in, like, as I've been going through these very early processes of like where humans come from, of like how much linked it is to the Bible, of as we learn stuff, we kind of develop shame, and like just next thing we start developing is weapons and starting killing each other and things. And it's just all the things that are spoken about in the Bible. And then like the other thing I feel like it's just made me so much more aware that we are an animal, which I've found is really nice with the doing nude beaches and stuff. And just like I would really recommend doing a rainbow festival for anyone if you have the time to find one. That you just kind of live in nature with a bunch of people and you just feel like an animal, like, and you just realize that humans, we're just it's just so abstracted from us. Like we just get like packages of like cut up meat and like vegetables and things. We have no idea where all this stuff has come from. Like our whole life is just sort of presented to us, that you just don't forget that you are literally just another living, breathing organism like every other cell, animal on the planet. And like there's just reasons for the way that you operate and do things, and like it just makes so much more sense. So tracking humanity from basically when we came out of trees to today, like I'm doing on my show, is just it's just so obvious that like I studied biology, like I studied the history of evolution, but even doing my new show has just made it even more obvious as we've gone through each like technological leap, as opposed to I just went through like the biological leaps on my degree, but actually I think the technological leaps of where we went from like ape to sort of slowly building society and just sort of these different waves that we went through is just, it's really fascinating, I found. And
Yeah.
that wasn't something I was quite expecting as we built society, but it's been really helpful for me and also helped build empathy for other people when you're like, okay, we're all just silly animals that have these different lizard brain and like mammal brains and stuff going on.
So you've interviewed a lot of people on your podcast. You've done a lot of episodes. You've done a lot of research for the episodes. What would you say is the most important lesson that you learned in doing your podcast?
About life, about
about life. Like, is there something where that just kind of like really struck you? And there's probably a million because you have podcasts on almost everything under the sun.
Yes.
Related to growth and development.
Yeah, like I did choose a very open topic deliberately because I get pretty bored with something confining me. I found it from just the different interviews, I just found it really fascinating in the same way that I was talking about, like you just get a piece of meat in the supermarket and it's kind of abstracted from where it's come from. I feel like you look at an Olympian or like I spoke to the founder of Skype and Shazam and stuff, and you hear about these stories like of these people and they seem more distant from you and like abstractified and same with like any musician, they just presented this person that was always going to become a musician or something, and realizing that like they had no idea what they were doing. They just sort of played with some stuff that they thought was interesting. And like anyone can basically do anything has been like a major lesson for me in that sense, which is very growth mindset. And then also internally for myself, I think I really did want to be like a successful entrepreneur for a while. Like I've always had lots of ideas. And so I kind of just naturally was like, okay, as someone that wants to invent things and do things, I want to like run a big company. And realizing through the process of making all these episodes and getting to explore lots of stuff that I actually hate the stress. I hate having lots of calls and that most of the people that I speak to who are entrepreneurs are really stressed. And I don't aspire to be a stressed person. And I actually really like having time to myself to like go running on the beach every day and just like noodling on my own philosophical, weird, intellectual journey about the history of humanity or something. And like, no one can tell me what to do. I don't have to like call anyone when I don't have to. I don't have to pay anyone. I just do what I do when I feel like it. And like how nice that is, has been a really interesting journey for me that, yeah, it's just made me think about what I actually want to achieve and do and how I can help people in humanity whilst doing things that actually interest me in a way that I would actually enjoy, as opposed to just what society tells you is normal, quote, success, etc.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I was in a PhD program for genetics and realized that all my peers and all the postdocs and all the PIs
PhD,
were all
they're all stressed. Yeah,
they're all miserable. I mean, they're all living in a prison. Not all of them, but there's so much kind of like, but so many people are just feeling not good enough, and it's publish or perish. And I just realized that the path I was on like wasn't a path leading to happiness for myself. And I also, like you, I was like, I want a more fulfilling way to live. And so I think those course corrections are so important for anyone listening, like to take a step back and say, is the path you're on a path that's going to lead you to happiness?
Yeah, that's definitely, well, so I introduce my show as like science of self-improvement and just philosophy of a life well lived, where I try not to do too much of this is the way and more of like, you have your own way. Let's like just ask some questions about what it might mean for you. And like, is this as important as this other thing? Like, some people really like freedom. Some people actually like having a normal job and a 9 to 5 and time with the kids. Some people just freaking love selling stuff and building businesses and working all the time. And that's fine. As long as it's sort of for the right reasons for them, right? And yeah, I think places where you can kind of philosophically ask these big questions for yourself and not be told what you should believe is, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I appreciate about your show is it's not a one size fits all. It's a, it's a self-awareness question
Mm.
of figure out
Yeah,
what's important to you,
it,
figure out.
it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare for advertisers because it's like, who listens to your show? Well, I've got like VCs in Japan. I've got some DJ in like Mount Sinai that I've spoken to. Like I've people from Timbuktu who are just like students. It's really cool, but tried to typecast them and sell anything and like make money has been harder than I would like. But it doesn't really matter. I haven't been too motivated by money, which is very handy.
Mm,
Otherwise, I'd have an
yeah,
issue.
yeah. Fantastic. Well, I guess the last question for you is if people want to learn more about you and your podcast, I mean, there's a lot of things you're putting out there. Where should people go check out your work?
Thank you for asking. So the Growth Mindset Psychology podcast is the one that I've been running for 8 years, where I talk about philosophy of a life well lived and mindset and psychology. And then my new show, the history one called How to Change the World, is about the history of innovation and basically every major idea that we've had that's about as important as the internet. I'm trying to cover in chronological order from the start of like humanity fire. So it's going to be like a 10-year project that I'm on. That's a bit crazy, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's full of fascinating things that you wouldn't expect, like from the language ones, like a huge deep dive into execution and shame that actually has lessons for today. Like every episode is just it's good is all I'm saying. Which is perhaps a bit up myself, but yeah, I'm surprised how much I'm learning doing it. And yeah, there's a lot
Sounds
of
like
people
an
to have a look.
epic project. Yeah. And I can understand a 10-year project with starting all the way back from, the earliest inventions. Well, definitely want to recommend everyone listening to go check out your podcast because it really is great. And you approach these things with a very human, empathetic, kind of down to earth perspective. So I appreciate it. And I know a lot of the listeners of this podcast will. So thanks for coming on the show. It really was a pleasure to chat with you. And I imagine we'll do some more of these in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we had a few ideas for stuff we could collab on, and looking forward to that. So really, really liking this show. So it's working. Cool. Take it easy.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. All right. That's it for today, folks. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Unhooked.